Hi guys, welcome back to the Camp Chronicles. In today's episode, we're going to be going through some of your guys' questions that you asked us over on TikTok and Instagram. We had quite a few questions come through over like a really broad range of topics. So hopefully we'll cover a lot of stuff today. So the first question that we got asked, or it wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement, but we'll pretend it was a question. We said, looking forwards to camp, but the travel anxiety is real. Which I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that one, won't they?
Yeah, even as a returner, I think your travel anxiety is like quite heightened. I think you have the excitement leading up to it, then you have the night before, and the night before is like the real panic where it's kind of like, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I going to know what to do to like tomorrow at the airport, at border control? But honestly, when you actually like say your goodbyes and you get through security, I think like a switch goes in your brain and you're just like, right, I have to get myself from point A to point B, and you just do it, don't you? And like the anxiety kind of goes away almost, and the excitement kicks in.
It's just like the more the build up to it, isn't it? I would say that makes it feel worse. I think maybe people are feeling more anxious this year just based on what's going on in the news. But everyone that's obviously going to work at a summer camp, you have a visa, so you have the right to work in America. So that would be something I would say don't stress too much about it because you've got the visa, you've got the right to work there. Just make sure you bring all your right documents with you. Bring your DS 2019, your service, your passport with your visa in it. I always bring my camp contract, my insurance documents. Just make sure you got all those extra little bits, even if it's just for peace of mind. That might kind of calm the anxiety a little bit. But yeah, like you've obviously just said, when you actually get to the airport, it's just like, oh, well, actually, I don't really know why I was that stressed because when you're there, it's pretty smooth sailing. It's just like you're going on a normal holiday, pretty much.
Also, like my agency just sent us out kind of an email just going over things to have, like ways to prepare, because obviously there is a lot of things going around on social media. Just kind of remember the type of visa that you're on. You're not on a work and holiday visa, you're on an exchange visitor visa, which is your J1. So kind of just think about them little things that can prepare you when you get up to border control. I think we've talked about before, like the questions that they ask. Kind of know where your camp is, know what your job title is on your contract, know that you're on a J1, which is an exchange visitor, and that'll kind of just prepare you for the questions. And something that I'm doing this summer, which I've never actually done before, is I'm going to take in writing a reason for return. Usually you obviously take this to the embassy with you, but I've never taken it with me to border control. But because I've been so many times now, and last time I was at border control when I was on an Esther, I kind of got questioned as to why I'd been to America so many times. I'm just going to take this just as proof. I'm going to take proof of return, which will be the letter written from work with their heading on with a signature on, just to say I'll be returning back to that job.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to bring just in case. And I think like a lot of people maybe haven't flown that far before as well. So that's maybe like something that stresses a lot of people out. My advice would be to watch as many like travel vlogs as you can. I mean, I just love sitting and watching them anyways, but like the little mini travel to camp with me TikToks, watch some of them just so you kind of know what to expect. And also like flying long haul, honestly, it's not that bad. You go on the flight, there's loads of movies that you can watch anyways, there's loads of TV shows, there's the little games on there, although I probably wouldn't recommend playing like Flappy Bird or whatever it is, Angry Birds. I was playing Angry Birds one time, so I was constantly pulling and swiping, and the person in front of us was like, excuse me, can you stop? And I was like, oh, sorry. But like there's loads of things to kind of keep you occupied. I always try and like not schedule, but I do kind of have a bit of a plane routine. I don't know if you do, but I'll always like get on the plane, get settled for a little bit, take my shoes off, put my Crocs on, get cozy, get my blanket out, and then I'll usually watch a movie. And then by the time you've watched one movie, they're starting to bring dinner around. So then I'll usually either put another movie on or I'll watch some TV shows whilst I'm eating. And then a little bit after that, usually a few hours into the flight, then I'll tend to try and sleep. Try being the key word because I can't always sleep. um, After I've tried to sleep, I'll usually wake up or just open my eyes if I never slept. sometimes well, last year I did this. I like downloaded TikToks offline, so I could do some doom scrolling when I was on the plane. Or if you're more intellectual, you could read. And then usually they either you'll have snacks with you or they'll bring round like a second meal, like a pre-landing type meal. You'll have another bit of food and then you're pretty much going to be landed. So it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I remember on my first long haul flight, I didn't realise that do you know when they come round with like the Coke, the Sprite, and just any
Mm,
beverage? I didn't
yeah.
realise that was free, so I was like, no, thank you. And then the second time I did long haul, I realised like it was all free, so I was like, yep,
Mhm.
I'll have that, just to make like money's worth.
Mhm.
But like you said, it's just watch travel vlogs. I'm going to say it now to hold myself accountable. I will do a travel vlog. I'll put it on our Camp Chronicles
Yes.
TikTok and I'll put it
Mhm.
on our Camp Chronicles YouTube because I fly
Mhm.
out in less than 6 weeks now.
That's
So
crazy.
I'm going to hold myself accountable now because I've said it. It's going online. We're not going to edit it out. I'm going to do it and hopefully I can kind of talk you through all the steps and talk you through going through border control as a returner.
Yeah. The last tip as well I would suggest is to, if you are feeling really anxious and nervous about doing it by yourself, is to reach out to other people that are going to your camp and see if anyone's on the same flight. I mean, it's the same at our camps and probably a lot of camps across America, is that arrival dates, like certain groups will arrive on certain dates. So like all the lifeguards for my camp will arrive together, or like the high ropes adventure staff arrive together, or the cabin counselors arrive together. You like pretty much guarantee that you're going to have at least one other person on the flight. Or I know some agencies that book flights for you, they'll obviously like bulk book lots of people onto the same flight. So it might not necessarily be someone that's going to your camp, but it's probably someone that's going to a camp and has exactly the same like flying nerves and being alone type thing as you. So try and reach out and see if anyone's on the same flight as you, or you'll probably meet people in the airport or the
Yeah,
flight.
I mean, last year I saw a group of girls sat down together, and I was like, they're definitely going to camp. Like, I can tell. So I just sat down and I listened for a little bit, and they were talking, and I was like, oh, you're going to camp by any chance? And then ended up sitting and had to run for my flight because I was nearly late because I was just sat in that run the whole time. But on like the topic of like anxiety and mental health, would you say at your camp mental health's considered as a taboo topic?
Yeah, because that was another question we got asked, wasn't it? I wouldn't say that it is taboo, personally. Like, I think, like, at camp, they're very open about it, especially during orientation, because, the kids that come to camp are going to be coming and they've got these, like, mental health problems that they're dealing with at home. They then get brought to camp, or sometimes, like, a kid might not be a very anxious kid and then they come to camp for the first time where they don't know anyone and suddenly they're like anxiety's through the roof. So there is a lot of things that like mental health wise that you do have to deal with at camp. So I personally wouldn't say in my experience it's ever been taboo. What about you?
No, it's never been taboo. It's something they talk about over and over and over again in orientation.
Mhm.
We also have a member of staff that's actually like a therapist,
Mhm.
something
Yeah,
along them lines.
that sort of
She
thing.
has her own practice anyways, and
Mhm.
you can kind of go to her. You can schedule in sessions if it gets to that like extent. But we talk about it a lot during orientation. Speak to each other. Speak to your lead members
Mhm.
of staff. Speak to just anyone you feel comfortable with. Like, I promise you, someone will be there to support you and will be there to help you. And like we said during orientation, you will probably have sessions on it because you will have kids that come to camp that have the likes of anxiety, that might have autism, that might have ADHD. Some of your kids might be on medication for it. So it is spoken about quite a lot. And just feel reassured from this that, if there is ever a down day that you have, or you do just want that little bit extra support, just reach out and someone will be there to help you.
Yeah, 100%. It's just a big like communication thing, I would say, on that side of things, especially with your co-counselors. If you are having the down days, you just need to make sure you say to your co-counselor, like, look, I'm just really not feeling great today. And 9 times out of 10, I can't remember if we've spoken about this before actually on a
We
different
have.
episode. Yeah, about like just the communication, and then your co-counselor kind of help like pick up where maybe you can't give 100%. Um, Another thing that maybe I guess kind of goes in line with like the mental health thing is eating disorders as well. And again, I don't know, I've never sat in on boys' side on conversations, but on girls' side, we do have a lot of talks around eating disorders and things like that. Because at camp they are very prevalent, especially within bunks of girls where, you might have one girl who I don't doesn't want to eat and she'll just eat ice. That's one big thing to look out for if they're just eating cups of ice all the time. A lot of the times that other girls will kind of follow. So things like that are kind of brought to the forefront of your mind and they are talked about. So it's nothing to like, it's not something that you should feel like ashamed or scared of. Like it's not taboo at all, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. I've totally forgot about the ice situation, by the way. That was massive last summer, the kids just eating ice out of a cup.
Yeah. And like that, I know this is maybe slightly off topic, but as a counsellor, even if you, let's say you're on a diet or you want to watch what you eat, or if you've struggled with eating disorders in the past as well, like as hard as it is, that's something that you should try and not engage with the kids, because if they're like talking about dieting, or if you've got a plate of food and you're like, yeah, I'm not eating the chips today because I'm just watching my weight, like the kids will pick up on that as well. So you have to be really careful with what you say, because like the kids are obviously very easily influenced. Like they need to eat, they're at camp, they might not be happy with all the food that's there, but like they do need to eat because they're at camp and they need that energy. So that's just something to kind of be aware of as well.
And something that I have in the past been guilty of is saying, oh, I really don't want that meal. And
Hmm.
then the kids follow suit. So, like, as much as you really don't want to eat grilled cheese, just don't say it.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next question we got asked was, how do you deal with periods at camp? Which you deal with periods at camp the same as you would deal with periods at home, I would say. But obviously, you're in a totally different environment. I don't know about you, and hopefully no one finds this too disgusting or TMI, but like when you go and there's like the time difference and you fly into the other side of the world, like your whole body is just like out of sync anyways. So you might find that like maybe you don't have your period for a little while, or maybe you have your period heavier or like more often than what you usually would at home. You're probably exercising more than you might be at home. You're eating different foods, like your whole body just kind of changes when you're at camp in those senses. So it might not be as regular, or it might become more regular, who knows. But yeah, periods at camp, pretty much everyone that gets a period, like you just kind of deal with it, don't you?
Yeah, and like, obviously, this is more for girl side. But I actually think it's something that happens on boy side as well. And I'll
Hmm.
explain that in a second. Is that we all, our bodies just sync with each other. After 1 or 2 weeks, everyone syncs together and everyone gets
Hmm.
their periods at the same time. And I feel
Hmm.
like men also just sync together a little bit, and they have their men periods as well, and they have their moods together.
Yeah.
But go to the health centre. Big thing about America is their medication is so much stronger than ours. Get some Tylenol, get whatever you can to get rid of the cramps. If it
Mhm.
is getting to the point where like, you feel like it is really like bothering you. I used to get like this where I'd get severe back pain and couldn't move. Again, just speak to someone, we'll be there to help you.
Mhm.
We all understand. I have actually chosen to go on like the contraceptive pill where you don't get periods, simply
Mhm.
just for the fact that this is very TMI, guys, just getting to know my life ins and out, simply so that I don't have periods at camp, because
Mhm.
I just hate feel the feeling of like being like hot and sweaty and being
Mhm.
on your period. Literally just personal preference. So yeah, that's kind of how I had periods first time at camp, and I just didn't want to have them again. But
Mhm.
most people do at camp.
Yeah. And like the kids as well. Obviously the kids get their period. Like I've had kids in my bunks before where like they've got their period for the first time at camp and they get to call home and it's like a whole like period celebration, and like their friends are helping them, telling them how to use tampons properly. Like the girls, especially the older ones, the younger ones might be a little bit more like iffy about it. I don't know, you've had the younger ones, you can maybe give a experience on that. But the older ones are like so open about it in the bunk at least. Like they'll be talking about it all the time. And also 9 times out of 10, the kids don't carry bags around with them at camp. They're gonna be on a morning. They're gonna be like, "Can you take these can you take these periods? Can you take these tampons for us?" And you'll have a bag full of tampons for your kids to use during the day, so that they don't have to keep running back to the bunk. And again, another thing that I think sometimes people worry about maybe is like if you do get a bit of a heavy flow and like you bleed through the night, if it gets on your sheets or anything like that. Again, not sure if it's the same at your camp, but we have camp moms. I hate saying moms, it sounds awful. Camp moms, who you can go to and they'll be able to like wash your sheets at camp for you rather than having to wait for the next load to go out. And it's not anything to be like ashamed of or worried about. Like there's worse things that they've probably had to clean out of bed sheets before.
Definitely. Just with the younger girls, my girls are going into that age now where they are starting to get periods. Maybe not so much bleeding, but the mood side of things. So I kind of just want to touch on that. I think we've got to remember that we were all their age once and we've all done the mood swings and went through the motions of our bodies changing. So just kind of be a little more, not necessarily lenient, but understanding that
Hmm.
the kids are going through this. And to be honest, they just need your support, even if they don't say they want it. Just be understanding of what they're going through, and will always remember you for, you know, being there for them through these times and helping them
Hmm.
out. So kind of, we've all had the mood swings, we all probably still get the mood swings. But just be understanding of kind of what your kids are going through, the confusion of the transition if you are having
Hmm.
middle camp, and for the girls that are a little bit older.
The last thing that I'd probably add on to that as well is if you don't use tampons and you only use pads, I would probably recommend trying to get into using tampons just because it's obviously a lot easier at camp. And like someone said previously, it's just a bit sweaty and gross at camp. Like you do get really hot. And also just like easier to carry around in your bag and stuff. So I would definitely recommend, oh, and for swimming as well. I mean, you can probably try and get out of swim if you want, but you should be realistically still trying to get in the pool or at least have your swimsuit on around the pool side and be playing with the kids that maybe don't want to swim. So definitely try and get into tampons if you're not already.
Some news for our viewers.
Mm.
I've actually just gotten a promotion at camp.
Woo!
I am going to be my girls' division head. Now, if any of my girls are listening to this, this is probably going to be the first time they hear of this. I haven't told them. But the reason why I'm telling you is because this links to a question we got from our very good friend who's recently been on the podcast. She said, how do you become a good lead counsellor with having more responsibility, getting people to respect you? I think this is like such a good topic to go into.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to start off maybe with this one.
Yeah, my top tip, because again, I'm also going into a new role this year. So this is kind of how I'm going into it, just based on my previous experience as well, like being a lead, is to try and make sure during orientation you get to know everyone, as well as you can. That's because like if you're going to be like in charge of a group of people, like you need to get to know those people, so make sure you know everyone's names during orientation and try and have conversations with everyone, because then they'll naturally will tend to respect you more. I would say for the most part, like first time staff and even returning staff, like going into camp, if you've been promoted to a new role, are going to respect that. I've never went into camp before, and do you know what I mean? Like, I'd never met Brooke and Emily before, and they were like the two like superiors to me, like head of upper camp and then head of girls side. But knowing that they had those roles, I just automatically had that respect for them because they've obviously been put in those positions for a reason. So 9 times out of 10, people are going to respect you, but they'll respect you even more if you can actually give the chance to get to know them. And you would hate for it to come to a point where there'd maybe been a problem with a counsellor or between like two staff members, and you had to go in and try and resolve it, and you like hadn't spoken to one of them before and the other one was your best friend. That counsellor that you haven't spoken to before is already going to be thinking, oh well, they're going to take their side anyways, whereas you need to have like a mutual like ground where you've spoken to everyone. That would be my first thing I would suggest.
I'd say kind of my advice would be as well is to go into it, have a conversation with your counsellors and let them know that you're going to be there doing the exact same thing as they are. You're going to have the same
Hmm.
responsibilities. You just might be able to take lead in situations and be like, oh, would you be able to possibly do this? It's not
Hmm.
that you want to be annoying, that you want to boss people around. It's just that you need them to do things, and you know, it's more that you trust them than you just want to put all the jobs onto them. Another thing is understanding where the line crosses between a friendship and between work. I think something that is difficult going into a leadership position in camp is that everybody is your friend, and you kind of know everybody from previous years, or say you're moving up a division with counsellors. You've gone from, say, for example, this year I've gone from a group leader to a division head. It's just understanding the line of, being overly friendly and talking about things that are going on in your day, to realizing that actually, some things don't always need to be shared. So I'll give you an example. A counsellor's annoyed you, you've asked them to do something, they've reacted in a certain way, rather than showing it on your face or going to, say, Ellen's in my division and we're best friends. I go to Ellen and say, Rachel's just really annoyed me, she's just done this. And Ellen's kind of a general counsellor and you're, a lead member of staff. That implicates you and implicates her and makes it awkward. And it's just not something you should share as a leadership member of staff. So kind of know where the line is and the fine balance between what you should share and what you shouldn't share.
Yeah. And you also need to have you need to go in with a bit of confidence, like a fake it till you make it type thing. Like whoever's put you in that role has put you in that role for a reason, because they think that you'll be able to do it and that you'll do a good job. Even if you might not think it straight away, you just kind of got to go in and pretend a little bit until you do feel confident. But on the flip side of that, you don't want to go in overly confident and acting like you know everything, because realistically at camp there's going to be situations that arise that nobody's ever had to deal with before. It's just the nature of the job, and you do have to think on your feet. So always just be willing to kind of take on board feedback, whether that be feedback like from people higher up. Like you're always going to have someone higher up as well. That's the top and bottom of it. You're never going to be the owner of the camp, unless maybe you are, but you're probably never going to be put in that position straight away. So there's always going to be people higher up that can kind of give you advice, but then also try and take feedback from your general counsellors or from your other activity counsellors, because they might say to you, oh look, like my kids are just really not enjoying this activity, like I know they're supposed to do it, or is there any way you can try and get it changed? Like make sure you listen from the bottom up as well, so that you take the feedback on board. Yeah.
I think also in terms of like being a good lead counsellor with the campers as well, something similar to what you've said, is going to the summer, getting their feedback, what they didn't enjoy last summer in terms of activities. It's really difficult to get my kids to soccer, for example. You get them there, all they do is play World Cup. They don't have interest in it because they do it every time, because it is technically the only thing they enjoy. But sit down and ask them and say, what do you enjoy doing at home when you play soccer? Is there anything that we could bring into soccer that's going to make it more fun, more enjoyable for you? Get the kids' feedback. It's really important, because you've got to remember that you're there for your summer, which is obviously understandable, but you're more so there for theirs and to make their experience enjoyable. And the last thing you want is to take 30 kids up to soccer and they'll be like, oh, I'm bored, I don't want to do this, I'm hot, I'm thirsty. Like any excuse to get away from the activity area. So find out what they enjoy doing, and that's how you can be a good lead counsellor for them kids, because you're finding out what they want to do.
Yeah. And that kind of stems back into the beginning where I was saying about getting to know every staff member. You should try and get to know, if you are like a cabin type lead role, try and get to know all the kids in your division as quickly as possible. At the minute, I'll be totally honest, I've got 120 odd kids that I'm going to be responsible for over the summer, and I've been going through and not making flashcards, but almost kind of making flashcards. I'm looking at their names all the time, reading through their notes, so I can try and put the notes to a face, to a name, to a bunk in a grade. And just if you have access to that before you go, then I would definitely try and do that. If you don't, then just make it a priority as soon as those kids come to camp. Every time you see them, you're calling them by their name so that it sticks in your head quicker. And then the last little thing, I guess that kind of relates, be organised. Me being organised is trying to prep as much as I can before I get there, so when I get there it's not as overwhelming. But even when you're at camp, I've got eighth grade girls, they do powder puff, and then ninth grade they have to do carnival, 10th grade do haunted house, the 11th grade do a million different things. Make sure that you're organized and you know everything that your kids are going to have to be doing, it's going to have to be doing, so then you can pass that on to everybody else. And like you were saying before, Summer, about kind of like delegating tasks to people's strengths. So if you're organized, it'll help all the other staff members to be organized as well.
So we have actually done an episode based around this question previously, but it's a good one to quickly just touch on. What are your top things to buy on your first Target or Walmart trip?
Okay, the top things that I had were an egg crate, which again we went into quite in-depth detail about egg crates, and that's in episode 19 if anybody wants to go back and listen to it. I also would say aloe vera again because I get burned like literally from sitting out in the sun yesterday. UV was only 4, my chest is actually a bit pink, and so I make sure it's covered up right now. And the last thing would be some sort of snacks. So at the moment, or last summer, my go-to was veggie straws. They're like the best crisps I've ever tried ever. So they're my top 3 things.
When I read veggie straws on your list, I'm not even sure. I thought you meant like paper straws. How daft is that?
They're like crisps, but they're literally like straws, like
Uh-huh.
French fries, but if the middle was cut out of them, kind of.
I can
And
picture what you mean in
they're
my head.
unreal.
Our quick fire for mine it would be blue Gatorade, as you all know, obsessed. It's the only thing that
Mhm.
gets me through the day. Water bottle because I don't take one with us, but this year I'm
Mm.
going to. Ellen has persuaded me. I'm going to save the $25 that I don't need to
Mhm.
spend when I have a cupboard full of water bottles. And lastly, a comforter. Now I know not all camps are AC in the bunks, but mine is. Some nights it can still get hot with the AC, but I think it's always nice to have a comforter. It makes your area more kind of homely and warm.
Mhm.
A comforter is like a duvet, but it's not thick. All of the kids will come with one. A lot of the kids sleep on top of them at
Mhm.
my camp, but some nights they'll all be like, oh, should we get into our comforters tonight? And then they all get in and then they have a night's sleep, and then I've got to remake them the next day because I've got like OCD when it comes to their beds. But yeah, comforter is a big one. I didn't want to have one my first summer, and I just slept with 2 blankets. My area just didn't feel homely. Second summer I
Mm.
got one, and I've never looked back.
Yeah. It's nice to get it, even if it just makes your room in your area feel a little bit more cozy. The next question that we had, so kind of moving away from the during camp side of things and into the post camp travels, we had a few questions. This one was, what are our top 3 places to travel post camp? And again, we did make an episode about all our favourite places that we travelled post camp. Yeah, so that was episode 15, so you can go back and listen to that one. But quickly, top 3 for me, a mix, if you want a mix of everything, Nashville, Orlando, and Yosemite. They're mine.
Ours are quite similar. So mine is Nashville, Florida, and I would definitely say do a little bit of the West Coast, whether that
Mhm.
be, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have mixed opinions on Los Angeles, but things I did, the places I went, where I saw, made it one of my favourite places to visit. It kind of gives you a mixture, like Ellen said, of the different places in America. You will get a different vibe everywhere you go.
Definitely. And Nashville's clearly a definite since we've both got it on our lists.
And I have actually booked my Nashville flight, but we'll talk about that in a couple of questions' time. Another quick fire question is, were you able to clean your clothes while travelling, or what did you do to clean your clothes? Um, Look at your accommodation that you're booking, I say, whether that be an Airbnb, whether that be an
Mhm.
apartment, whether that be a hotel, because the likelihood is there will be facilities somewhere that you go to, but also I know laundrettes have been quite popular for people. You
Mhm.
just go in, put your stuff in. It kind of runs a little bit similar to my camp laundry system. What about you?
Yeah, we always have kind of timed it quite well. We're staying in Airbnb in Nashville and we're there for a few nights usually. So by the end, I'll just do a big wash of everything and then we're good to go. And then kind of like every week, at least I would say, try and make sure that you are somewhere that has those laundry facilities. It just makes it so much easier. Or if you're staying with a friend, and they'll very kindly allow you to use their washing facilities at the house, then even better, just do that. So like second summer we stayed with Brooke in Long Island. It's not in, it's on Long Island because it's an island. And we all, four of us pretty much, had laundry loads just going the whole time we were there because it was about halfway through our travels. So it's like one of those little things where you think, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But when you actually sit down and think about it, it's very straightforward. Just Airbnbs usually have one, hotels usually have one, friends will definitely have one.
Definitely, and if you're getting the likes of laundry pods when you're at camp and you've got like 20 left over, put them
Mm.
in a Ziploc bag, take them travelling with you. It's really good to have rather than paying for them. But I know some places have had like a little vending machine,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just put a couple of coins in and get some laundry detergent out. So it's
Yeah.
definitely doable.
Mhm.
Just kind of plan and have a look as to where you can go to do your washing.
Definitely. And then next question we had was more centered around going to camp and being under 21. So I've never experienced this. I can only talk from other people's experiences at my camp, but some of you obviously had. So the question was, are there any tips for under 21s if you don't have a car for days off, you can't get into bars, etc. And what is it like with post-camp travels? For example, is it worth going to places like Vegas and Nashville where it's quite like a party scene? So what was your experience obviously being under 21 at camp?
But yeah, last summer was my first summer. I turned 21 at camp. Honestly, nights off, days off, you won't be the only one in that boat. Kind of find out what your camp rules are. It really depends camp to camp. Not everything involves alcohol, to be honest. 9 times out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
after the first or second week, people are too exhausted for that to be their priority on the nights and days off. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of find out what your camp's like, what the rules are, find out what people usually do on the days off. We do things similar. We go to malls, we go to Skinner's. But again, we've talked about all this previously. In terms of travelling, my first summer I was 19. I done all of the travelling. The whole group was over the age of 21. I still managed to do loads with them. I just missed out on the nights out, which honestly I didn't mind because I was there more for the travelling and seeing places. So on a morning when they would wake up hungover, I would be going and doing Hollywood hikes, and I would be like actually seeing the places I was going to. I wasn't just hungover. And kind of, yeah, Nashville is a big one that people worry about, I think. But when I was in Nashville last year and went to get my tattoo done with a couple of the girls, some of them were under the age of 21, and we went out for a drink afterwards, and they were still able to go in there without an ID and sit down. It was just they weren't able to order a drink. I think it's similar in other places as well. You just kind of can't order alcohol.
Yeah, it really depends on like the places that you go, because like you're saying in Nashville, it's such like a party place like all the time that you can go and like sit and experience all the same vibes during the day in the bars. And some places like I'll let you go in without ID, you just obviously can't buy a drink. Sometimes places won't ID you. I don't know if you go to slightly more like college towns and places like that in the bars, they might not be as strict with IDing. Um and as for like going to Nashville, I would say go anyways. Like your main priority and your main thing for like going to places like Nashville and Vegas shouldn't be because you can go in to drink. I mean, I know it is for a lot of people, but like Vegas, for example, when we went, I don't think we had one proper night out in Vegas. Like we went one night where we sat in a bar, but there's like so much to do other than drinking as well. Obviously, there's the gambling. You just won't be able to do that either, but that's fine. Um, and as for the question about days off and not having cars and being able to drive, a lot of, well, it depend on your camp really. Some camps will put on like big yellow school buses and take everyone on that day off to one place. Or like my camp, we get mini vans. So if someone's over 21, they can obviously drive them. You can just hop in with them. Or if your camp doesn't have access to any of that, you're gonna have to really branch out and make friends with some Americans that can drive and hope that they'll take you places on your days off as well. Which is not a bad thing to do at all, by the way. But also, don't just try and make friends with people because you need their car. That is a bad thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's definitely something to kind of reiterate. But my camp provides a lot of transport for everyone, so just find out kind of what your camp your.
And then the very last question that we had was about post camp travel flights, how to find cheap flights, what are like the flight costs and things like that. Flights generally, I would say, start off cheap, just like they do in the UK. Like if you want to fly with Ryanair, you look on it, you're like, wow, that's a really cheap flight. And then you add your bags on and then you add seats on and the prices just start going up. So sometimes booking like the cheapest airlines and the cheaper airlines, if you've got a lot of luggage, like me, having a big suitcase and a little suitcase and my backpack, doesn't actually always end up being cheaper. Like some quite often I'll book or have booked with Southwest because you get 2 checked bags included in the price, and it's ended up working out cheaper than it would have to book a cheap flight with Spirit, for example, and then adding all the bags on. And also if you book them early enough, sometimes they do deals. So I got a flight with Frontier, which is apparently notoriously a bad airline, but I didn't have a problem with them at all. And booked like a business upgrade, which meant that I got a seat with extra leg room at the front of the plane and I got my bags included. And it was cheaper to do that rather than just add one bag on itself. So make sure you look around and shop around at deals. And that's the best way I've found to do it anyways.
Yeah, I did that my first summer. I just was like Spirit, and
Mhm.
ended up spending way more money on one, getting a bigger suitcase, and then two, the charge of having overweight bags because it's only
Mhm.
19 kilograms for them types of flights. It's not
Yeah.
actually like your typical 23 kilograms that you get. Whereas if you go with the likes of Delta, American Airlines, then bigger known companies, it ends up, again, like you said, working out cheaper. I've just booked with JetBlue for my Nashville flight because I
Mhm.
know that's when I'm going and where I'm going. So we've decided that we're going to go out on the same day that we leave camp. So a lot of us have just booked a flight, and it's ended up costing, it was £56 for the flight, and then I think it's ended up costing like 70 something pound for New York to Nashville, food and luggage. So an airline like JetBlue doesn't let you add on your bags. You've got to book it on after you've booked your flight, unless people know a way to do that, because I couldn't find a way to book it all at once.
I think a lot of airlines are like that because I've had that problem before where I've booked my ticket and I thought, right, now where do I add my bag on? But you have to go back into the booking afterwards and then like add it on. But I don't know if you've flown with JetBlue before, but Camp usually uses JetBlue when we fly places with like the kids and stuff, and JetBlue are really good. Like even just flying New York to Orlando, which is like only like maybe a 3-hour flight or something, they have like the TV screens in the back of the seat and everything so you can watch movies and stuff. And they're always good. So yeah, I'd recommend that. The last thing actually I'd probably recommend if you are looking to save money, kind of regarding flights, is if you're flying like coast to coast or like slightly longer journeys, try and book an overnight flight because then it'll save you money on hotels as well. So if you're flying like New York to LA, if you can get it overnight, although the time difference, I don't know if that works as well. Let's say LA to New York, because the time difference, you obviously going forwards. If you book an overnight flight, it means you don't have to pay for a hotel for that night as well. You can just sleep on the plane and then wake up in the airport, and you've saved yourself a bit of money. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did with Vegas my first summer. I booked
Mm-hmm.
like the red eye flight, so I think the flight was at like 12:01 a.m. and then I landed in at Florida at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't obviously have to spend any money on accommodation that night. And if you book a
Mm-hmm.
flight like that late, it usually is cheaper.
Yeah. No one wants to be flying that late.
No, not at all. But yeah, that kind of sums up like most of the questions that we got. Please do feel free to spam our DMs, our TikTok DMs with literally any questions that you have. Anything that we can do to help you, please just ask away. If you need help with your visas, if you need help about your flights, if you just want a little bit of friendly advice, or if you just want to have a conversation with someone about camp, we're here. We'll try and help you out as best as we can. All we can do is go off our own experiences and kind of go off each other's that we've talked about. But if you do need anything at all, like I've said, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you as best as we can. We hope you enjoyed listening to our little Q&A session, and the countdown is really on now for us going to camp, isn't it?
Yeah. By this time this comes out, I'll have in 2 months pretty much. I'll have done my last shift at work and I'll be getting ready to fly out. Thank God.
So exciting. But we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.